Hi, welcome to the Online Graduate Research Forum for Fall 2015. My name is Jill Trolinger, and I'm a graduate student working toward a Master's of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies through the Department of Occupational, Workforce, and Leadership Studies. The title of my research is Employee Engagement, Perception, and Intent. The purpose of my study was to look at employee engagement in a slightly different way than I have seen before. This is an important topic because it involves not just owners, managers, and employees, but everyone who deals with any kind of business. Although there is not one definitive definition of employee engagement, the general consensus is that employees who are engaged will happily go the extra mile for their employers, and doing this is energizing rather than depleting. Because of the large amount of data available related to organizational and employee studies, this presentation focuses on elements that create successful workplaces, my research and findings, workplace consequences of these findings, limitations of my study, and considerations for future research. When organizational researchers first started looking at the employee-employer relationship, the eye was toward profit for the organization. Initially, the employees were not the focus. The thought was that if employees were paid, they should be happy. In 1962, Abraham Maslow developed Eucychian management. Maslow is well known for his hierarchy of needs, and he used his knowledge to understand what was required to be at the highest levels of functioning in the workplace. He found barriers include a scarcity of goods and rewards, failure to satisfy basic needs, rules and procedures that are confusing or not followed, situations that cause anxiety such as loss of freedom, separation, forcing change on the fearful, bad communication, blurred lines between truth and falsehood, a loss of self-esteem, loss of respect, and a loss of a sense of belonging. In 1990, William Kahn's research led him to understand that the whole person must be taken into consideration when trying to understand what employees need to be successful. He theorized three essential conditions necessary for what he called psychological presence: meaningfulness, safety, and availability. In positive work environments, there is mutual respect and caring. Individuals must have some autonomy and a sense of control over their environment. There must be consistent and clear communication. Individuals must feel they are making a difference and have the ability to be creative and use their talents and skills. This continuing research is important because studies have found that an employee who is engaged will help their organization by going that extra mile. With an engaged workforce, there is less turnover, absenteeism, presenteeism, injuries, and theft. Employee engagement leads to organizations that are more flexible, creative, with higher customer satisfaction, and are more profitable. The employees benefit with better physical and mental health, and their families also benefit from a more positive family member. My study entailed looking at differences between manager and employee perceptions related to the management behaviors that increase employee engagement. The thought behind my study was that if organizations understand the value of engaged employees, but there is still a high number of disengaged workers, perhaps the problem is between intent and perception. I wanted to find out if managers believe they're presenting qualities to engage workers, but the employees see things differently. My study was performed with three different types of groups: an HR department, a small engineering company, and a small medical research company. Managers and employees answered 25 questions on a 5-point Likert scale that ranged from not satisfied to extremely satisfied. The questions were derived from two employee satisfaction surveys, the Minnesota Satisfaction Questionnaire and the Gallup Q12. There were 25 questions for managers and 25 questions for employees. The questions were virtually the same for both managers and employees, but they were worded slightly differently. For instance, a manager's question would be, "I care about my employees as people," and the employee's question would be, My manager cares about me as a person. Responses from the three groups were combined, and the only variables taken into consideration were whether the responder was a manager or an employee. Data was analyzed using a two-tailed independent t-test in Excel. Results reflected that in general the managers had higher levels of satisfaction than the employees. This is normally the case with work surveys. Managers score higher. The reason for this could be that managers have more control over their work environment, an element important for engagement. The questions that had the highest mean difference and lowest p-value were: my manager cares about me as a person. At work, my opinions count. My manager handles his or her workers fairly. And in the last 6 months, I have received feedback on my work progress. These results are striking considering that direct managers have an extreme effect on their employees. Studies show that the #1 reason employees will leave their organizations is due to dissatisfaction with their managers. Caring is a reciprocal quality. When employees do not feel that their managers care about them as people, they will not care about their managers. This induces less trust, loyalty, less initiative on the employee's part, as well as less taking of responsibility. When employees do not feel their opinions matter, it generates a feeling of no control over one's environment. In this type of environment, employees do not feel valued. This leads to low morale and low engagement. Seeing the unfair treatment of coworkers can create anxiety, and employees may become more concerned with themselves than their work. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the basic tenets for survival is psychological safety. When employees see coworkers being treated unfairly, it causes a great deal of stress, a lack of trust, reduced creativity, and low energy. When employees do not know where they stand related to their performance, there's no starting point to measure improvement. Receiving feedback in a positive manner creates excitement for potential growth. Without clear goals, work will flounder. The findings from this study are important because they can give employers an understanding as to why their employees may not be engaged. This study reflects that better communication skills must be learned. To increase engagement, each employee must be considered a valuable source of information and ideas. Managers must be trained to give positive, specific feedback and also realize that they need to establish relationships with their employees through regular, positive conversations. A Harvard Business article stated that leadership is a continuous conversation with the individuals who work with and for you. Employees must also learn acceptable ways to communicate their needs to their managers. There must be enough trust between the two to allow this to happen, and it is important that this be a part of the company culture. Some of the limitations of my study were the small population, the low ratio of managers to employees, and the limited geographic area. Expanding the research to larger populations and larger geographic areas would give more insight related to the consistency of responses. Also, collecting more demographic information such as income level, years of education, number of years at the organization would add value. I will be providing separate results to each of the organizations that participated, along with suggestions for improved communication. I am submitting this research to the Human Resource Management International Digest. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Please post your comments and questions in the comments section below between November 17th and December 8th, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. Again, thank you for listening.